Today, of course, is New Year's Day, and many people make New Year's resolutions, things they plan on doing differently this year. New Year's is a time to make a new beginning, and in the spirit of New Year's, I thought it would be good to look at a theme found in the Gospels, especially that is often overlooked. Is the Christian life active or passive? Now, what do I mean by that? So I want to think about it sort of going around in a circle, and to do that I want to first talk about living with integrity. Now, if you live with integrity, it means that the way you live your life reflects the values that you hold. And our values are our beliefs about what's good and bad, desirable things and undesirables. Our principles, in other words, are our values. They are our guidelines for how we classify any certain behavior as good or bad. And so based on these principles or these values, we consider any certain action or behavior as good or bad. The question is, do we live our lives according to these values we have? Do our own actions reflect our values? Just to use a very simple example, we may believe and have the value that stealing is wrong. But yet when we're in Walmart one day, we slip a box of paper clips in our pocket and leave without paying for it. In our minds, we believe stealing is wrong, but yet we get a little box of paper clips and put it in our pocket. There's a discrepancy then between our values and our actions. And that's what it means to live without integrity. We do not live according to our values. Now, a person who has the value that stealing is wrong and does not steal is living with integrity relative to that value. But the person who has the value that stealing is wrong and steals is living without integrity. Now, we may say, well, the person that says stealing is wrong and believes stealing is wrong and yet steals is a hypocrite. But that's not true. That's not what a hypocrite is. A hypocrite is someone who claims to have a set of values, but they really don't. They just say they believe stealing is wrong, but in their mind, they believe it's okay. I may say when I'm around certain people that I believe gambling is wrong and people shouldn't gamble. I do not personally believe gambling is a sin. However, if I wanted to impress somebody and was around a group of people who would expect me to say gambling is a sin, and I say, oh yes, gambling is a sin, but yet I do not really believe that, that's a hypocrite. I am professing one set of values, but I really have another set of values. So if I wanted to, if I didn't really believe gambling was a sin, I could go down to Kings Mountain and go in the casino and gamble, and it wouldn't bother me, because I wouldn't really believe it's a sin. And so if I went down there and gambled and played slot machines or whatever, I wouldn't have a bad conscience from doing it. The only thing I'd be concerned about is that one of those people that I told I thought gambling is a sin would come down the road and see me pulling out of the parking lot down there. And so that would, the only thing I'd worry about, but it wouldn't make me feel bad. I wouldn't be going against my value. I'd just be going against what I told somebody to get along with them. It's completely different, though, for a person who lives without integrity. Because a person who lives without integrity is going against the values they really have, not just the values they say they have. Deep down, they do believe in certain values, but they don't live by them. Deep down, they believe certain things are wrong, but they do them anyway. And deep down, they believe certain things are right to do, but they fail to do those. And that's living without integrity. Using our simple example of stealing a box of paper clips, If I go in Walmart, put a box of paper clips in my pocket, walk out with them, I have this feeling in my mind, okay, I know it's wrong to steal, but I just stole these paper clips. And that's what psychologists call dissonance. We have dissonance inside us because we have acted contrary to our values. Now, if you just do that occasionally and do it on little things like a box of paper clips, you can get by with it and it won't eat at you too much. But what do you try to do when you get those paper clips? You try to adjust your perception of what you did to go along with the values that you have. You try to convince yourself that you really didn't steal those paper clips. I was reading a book a while back, and one sentence in there struck me. It said, "As with all people, he has altered his perceptions to retain both his values and his lifestyle." In other words, his lifestyle is lived in a way that does not reflect his values, so he comes up with ways to try to convince himself that it is. So you alter the way you look at things in order to make it permissible for you to live against your values. In our example, we might say, well, I know I took that box of paper clips from Walmart, but 2 years ago they sold me a defective coffee maker, and when I tried to take it back, they wouldn't give me my money back. And so now all I'm doing is a little drop in the bucket to even the score. I'm really not stealing. They owe me for that coffee maker from 2 years ago. I'm just evening the score. It's really not stealing, you see. It's not stealing. And that might work in simple situations like slipping a box of paper clips. It may work a time or two. It's not like you've robbed a bank or something like that. But eventually, if you do things that major ways go against your values, it's going to start bothering you. Because you're going to get to the point where you're not going to be able to adjust your perceptions and convince yourself that what you did was not really wrong. You eventually get to the point where you have no choice but to admit to yourself that you are living in a way that does not reflect your values. You are living in a way that is wrong, and yet you continue to live that way. And that's a horrible feeling. I've seen that feeling destroy people. I've seen people so torn up deep inside them because they knew they did not live by their values that they just fell apart. For a while they were able to justify, they were able to alter their perceptions and make excuses, and then it got to where they couldn't, and they had to look face to face in the mirror, and they fell apart. You cannot live without integrity over the long run and it not affect you. But there's something else also. What example do you set for others? When you live without integrity, that's the example you are setting to others. It's not only that you're not true to yourself, it's that other people know you're not true. It's not that only that you feel bad about yourself, but other people will see you and have a bad opinion of you too. And eventually all that closes in on somebody. It just reaches a point where it just crushes them. But living with integrity means that your actions, the things you do, actually do reflect the values that you have. Living with integrity requires sacrifice. Let's face it, the world does not reward people who live according to what's right. And I'm not being cynical, I'm just telling the truth. The world rewards people who go along to get along. The world rewards people who are willing to bend a little bit here and there in order to go along and get ahead. The world rewards people who are willing to bend a lot if they want to get ahead a lot. In fact, you could argue in our society today that that's the only way to really get what you want, if you want a lot, is to bend your values. And so we bend them. And we get what we want. We've altered our perceptions as much as we could. But we still have to look ourselves in the mirror when we get up the next morning. And you're going to see a person whom you do not like. All of us want to see a person in the mirror who we like. Do we see a person in the mirror, though, who we don't like? Because we have bent and bent and bent in order to get ahead. And then finally, we discover and realize that it wasn't worth it. Jesus said, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his own soul? Living without integrity destroys our soul. It destroys us. It destroys the image that we see in the mirror every morning. There is an epidemic of unhappiness in the United States, according to several studies that have been done. And my guess is that a lot of that unhappiness is simply due to the fact that people do not live by their values. They do not have integrity. And therefore they do not like the person they see in the mirror. Now I want to think of something else. Let's think of two men, John and Bill. John hangs out at city bars on the weekend. He plays pool and poker. Occasionally he picks up a woman he just met for a one-night stand. Bill, on the other hand, doesn't do any of those things. Bill doesn't go to city bars. He doesn't play pool, doesn't play poker, doesn't pick up strange women for one-night stands. Now, I guess I need to make something clear here. By using this example, I'm not condemning any of these things necessarily as sins. There are a lot of examples that I could have used, but this one was sort of one that's not politically charged at the moment. There are some examples I could have used that are so controversial and politically charged at the moment that just simply by their use, they would have just been explosive. So, you got to avoid certain things today. So I'm just using this. I guess we've all been in seedy bars before. Probably shouldn't have been, but we've probably all passed. But anyway, which man would you say most exemplifies a Christian life? Bill or John? Remember John's over here at the, what was that, Sargent's or something out where they had the sawdust on the floor back when I used to live in Oklahoma, there was sawdust on the floor. You go in there, and carrying on and, whatever goes on. So John goes there. Bill doesn't. We'd have to say, wouldn't we, that Bill is the one that lives the Christian life. Or he's the one that comes closer to it. Because look at all the things John does. Listen to this from Matthew chapter 7. This is Jesus speaking. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. You will know them by their fruit. Do men gather grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Even so, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, but a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Therefore, by their fruits you shall know them. And I want to couple that with something in the book of 3 John. Do not imitate evil, but imitate good. Whoever does good is from God. Whoever does evil is not from God. There's something very important in those two passages. Jesus said a good tree is known because it bears good fruit. Notice that Jesus did not say a good tree is known because it does not bear bad fruit. You see the difference? When we were talking about John and Bill, it was so easy to say that Bill lived closer to a Christian life because of John, not because of the things he did, but because of the things he did not do. But you see, Jesus is not saying a good tree is known by the fact that it does not bear bad fruit. Jesus is saying a good tree is known by the fact that it bears good fruit. So Christian life is not passive. You are not known by what you do not do. You are known by what you do. A good tree bears good fruit. The Christian life is not characterized by what you do not do. The Christian life is characterized by what you do. And that's very important, because I think sometimes people forget that. 3 John, do not imitate evil, but imitate good. That means imitate good, do good. Christian life is active, not passive, you see. These passages talk about good as something we do, not as avoiding bad. It's something we do, not something we avoid. Being a follower of Jesus entails more than just avoiding doing bad things. It necessitates doing good things. You must live your life with integrity. And that means you live your life according to certain values. If we intend to be followers of Jesus, then we must live our lives actively imitating Jesus. That involves more than just what you don't do. It involves actively doing good. And actively doing good not by our definition, and not by society's definition, and not by any particular philosophy or whatever's definition, but doing good by Jesus' definition. And that's something I want us to remember as we start this new year. I hope we can live with integrity this year. I hope we can live according to the values that deep down we have in our heart. And I hope we can realize that being a Christian is not characterized by what you do not do. Being a Christian is characterized by what you do. And next week, we will look at some of the things that Jesus told us to do. And so we will get more into the subject of, well, what is it that we are supposed to do?